Hi friends! In this video I'm going to be talking about 5 strategies for mental health that double as witchy practices and or witchy practices that also double as strategies for mental health. So if you're someone who struggles with their mental health, keep watching. You might just learn a strategy or two that'll help you navigate a rough day. Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Maddie, and here on this channel, we make videos about LGBT issues and mental health. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, consider subscribing and consider supporting us on Patreon. Links in the description below. Anyway, most of you probably already know this, but I am neurodivergent and mentally ill. I've been diagnosed with OSDD and anxiety. I've been given a working diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder bipolar type, and I strongly suspect that I'm somewhere on the autism spectrum, as do many of the people who know me. So needless to say, my head is a fun place to be sometimes. But in addition to taking my meds and seeing a therapist and a psychiatrist, there are also a few exercises that I do for myself that help me regulate my mental health. And some of those things aren't just mental health exercises, but also magical practices that can be part of my religious practice. And I wanted to share some of them with you. So whether or not you identify as a pagan or a witch or anything of the sort, if you struggle with your mental health at all, I think these are all techniques that you might find helpful. So the first technique I want to talk about is actually one that I learned throughout the course of my internship. It's called grounding, and the term grounding is something that I've definitely seen floating around mental health spaces before, usually within the context of the 5-4-3-2-1 method. Find 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. A lot of people find this technique really helpful. It doesn't work super well for me, but I know a lot of people swear by it. For me, grounding is a technique that I learned from the reclaiming tradition, and it's a visualization exercise that can help you shake off unwanted energy or receive energy when your reserves are low. You can do this while either standing or seated, but if possible, make sure that your feet are firmly planted on the ground or as close to the ground as possible. Close your eyes if you're comfortable doing so, and imagine an intricate system of roots, tree roots, coming out of your feet and into the earth beneath you. Even if you're in like a 12th floor apartment, just imagine those roots extending all the way from your feet into the earth far beneath you. Sometimes I'll stop the exercise here, but sometimes I'll also reach my hands up and imagine tree branches extending from my fingers high into the sky. If there's a lot of excess negative energy in my mind or body, I imagine myself sending that energy down through the roots into the earth where she can purify and transmute that energy. Likewise, if I'm running low on energy and I feel like I need some support to get me through, I channel some of that energy from the sun, the air, the sky, through the branches I'm envisioning and into my body. And for those of you who are watching who remain skeptical, I understand completely, and I'll be the first to tell you that it's not going to be a miraculous fix. Magic and witchcraft rarely are. Same with mental health practices. Like, if you're really desperate for an energy boost, grounding can help. So can a nap, or a cup of coffee. Grounding can help with bad energy too, but the answer may lie in medication or having a difficult conversation with someone. And this goes for the other techniques and exercises that I'm going to be talking about in this video too. They're meant to be helpful, but not cure-alls. The second exercise I want to talk about is actually exercise, like good old-fashioned physical activity. And before you accuse me of being ableist or out of touch, let me be the first to say that so many claims about exercise and mental health are complete and utter BS. Like, you don't have to tell me that Pilates isn't going to cure depression. I know. I'm not here to make exercise recommendations or make you feel bad for not being more active, none of that. I myself am not a fit or active person, not by a long shot. But one thing that a number of witches do as a magical practice involves some form of physical activity. For example, a lot of witches love gardening as a way of connecting with nature, and that involves physical activity. Nature walks are also a good way to connect with Mother Earth, and that can be a good way to get your heart rate up. Personally, I like to dance. As I mentioned in my rituals and mental health video, my go-to ritual is to create a playlist that revolves around something that I want to focus on, and then dance to the music. So exercise itself isn't necessarily a pagan practice, though some believe it is, but a number of pagan practices involve some sort of physical activity. And it's been proven time and time again that movement is good for mental health. Unfortunately, our rampant diet culture and obsession with thinness has resulted in an unhealthy relationship with exercise for so many of us, myself included. But I know that when I'm stressed and overwhelmed, going on a short walk always seems to help more than holding myself up in my room. I think it would be irresponsible not to mention that physical disabilities can limit a person's mobility, so it's important to know what your boundaries are. For some people, mental health care looks like training for a marathon. For others, it looks like sitting down and doing curls with 2-pound dumbbells. Another important part of being a witch, in my opinion, is recognizing that everyone's path is different. The third technique that I personally find helpful for me and my mental health is divination. Whether it's tarot or runes or astrology, I honestly think that divination is one of the best tools we have for understanding ourselves. And yes, I said understanding ourselves, not understanding the future. I feel like one of the most common misconceptions about divination is that it's all about gazing into a crystal ball and learning about what the future holds. And maybe it's unfair to call that a misconception because you can use divination as a way to get a glimpse of a possible future. But the future isn't something that's set in stone. It's constantly changing based on our decisions in the present. So if I'm asking the tarot about starting a new business venture, for example, and I draw the Ten of Pentacles, which is all about financial security and leaving a long-lasting legacy, I might think to myself, wow, that's awesome, I'm destined for success. But if I end up being lazy or I choose to screw people over and make bad business decisions because in my mind I'm destined for success, I'm going to be in for a rude awakening when all my plans come crashing down. Because the card wasn't saying you'll be successful no matter what. The card was saying you have the potential to be successful if you play your cards right. Likewise, negative cards, if you can call any card entirely negative, don't necessarily foretell doom and gloom no matter what you do. They can be warnings. They can definitely warn you against the path that you're going down, but they're not telling you what your future absolutely has to hold. They're not a window into the future, but a mirror for you to look at yourself and your circumstances. And so I find it helpful for my mental health because if I'm feeling really anxious about something, I can use the tarot, for example, to take a long, hard look at myself and ask why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. Or if I'm wondering why I am the way I am, I can look to astrology, which, like tarot, isn't a dictation of who you are, but a way to understand yourself and grow from that knowledge. Like, I have a stellium in Pisces. My Sun, Moon, Mercury, Mars, and Saturn are all in the sign of Pisces. And as one of my good friends pointed out, this means that I'm somewhat predisposed to being indecisive, which is very true. I'm painfully indecisive. But when it comes to astrology, I have two options. Yes, I can look at the details of my chart, the positive and the negative, and say, well, that's just who I am, no point in trying to change myself for the better. But I can also look at some of the weaknesses in my chart and say, okay, I see where I'm called to improve in this life. And personally, I know which one makes me feel more empowered. The fourth exercise that I personally find helpful as I navigate through the treacherous terrain of my mental health is meditation. And before I say anything more, I want to preface this by saying that meditation can be potentially harmful and dangerous for people with certain mental health conditions, including psychosis, which I happen to have. So please hear me loud and clear when I say that mentally ill and neurodivergent people should practice caution when it comes to meditation. If you're going to get into meditation, maybe try meditating for short periods of time. I used to meditate for hours on end as a form of escapism, and that ended up going not too well for me. And also, I'd recommend meditating with someone else or checking up with someone else if you start having funny thoughts or feelings. Make sure you're still grounded in reality. But all that being said, I do think that meditation is a magical practice that can also be tremendously helpful for dealing with brain stuff. I personally use it to deal with my anxiety, which is easily the most prevalent and difficult struggle out of all the things going on inside my head. When my thoughts are racing and I'm starting to panic, I'm sometimes able to go into a quiet, dark place, close my eyes, and just focus on breathing. Slow down my breaths, because I'm probably starting to hyperventilate, and just focus on regaining some semblance of stability. Meditating is also a good way for me, as part of an OSCD system, to try and shut out the world, slow down my mind, and see if any of my alters are nearby trying to communicate. My mind is often a very loud place just because I don't know how to stop thinking, but meditation is a good way for me to quiet my mind just for a little bit. I'm not well equipped to not think about anything at all, and I don't think that most people are, but even just slowing down my thoughts can be really helpful. And the fifth and final technique that I want to talk about is Spellcraft. I saved this one for last because I didn't want to scare anybody off, but let me be clear, I'm not trying to convert anyone to paganism. The overwhelming majority of pagans, myself included, don't believe in converting people to our path. Our path is not for everyone, and we don't like to pretend that religion is something that's one size fits all. That being said, I don't think that Spellcraft is exclusive to pagan religions. Most religions have prayer, which I personally define as talking to the divine, usually to ask the divine for a particular thing. God, please grant me the patience to get through the day. Athena, please grant me the wisdom to know what to do in the situation. That sort of thing. And like I said, prayer doesn't have to be asking for something. It can also be, Jesus, thank you for this day. Or, hey Poseidon, just saying hello since we're at the beach. Prayer is a conversation. And to be clear, I think that prayer is an A+ method of working through your mental health. So technically I'm sharing 6 strategies for mental health that double as witchy practices. But I think witches are more known for our spells than our prayers, so I wanted to talk more about that. Per my definition, spellcraft is using our own magical energy to make things happen. Instead of asking the gods to change the world, we recognize our potential to change the world and do it ourselves. Spells often involve words, but not always, and often rhyme, but again, not always. I think that one of the most common forms of spellcraft today is the practice of affirmation, where we tell ourselves positive, uplifting things in order to create a change in our lives. Thing is, we really do start to believe the things we hear, and if we tell ourselves positive things, we start to behave as if they're true. Words are powerful. Personally, I think that spells are most powerful when you write them yourself because you're putting your own energy into the spell and creating that personal connection with the words you're saying. But if that's not your thing, I don't see anything wrong with borrowing spells from other people. Honestly, I think that even fictional sources are fair game sometimes. One spell that I keep tucked away in my back pocket for a rainy day actually comes from the Netflix original Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. The spell is a fairly simple one as far as spells go. If truly I am cursed today, let water wash the hex away. You accompany the spell with a shower or, if pressed for time, washing your hands and face with water, and you go about your day. This one is useful to me because I'm very prone to paranoia and intrusive thoughts, so if my day is falling apart and I'm worried that someone is trying to do me harm, it's a quick and easy way to counteract it. And chances are, nobody's trying to hurt me. Most people don't practice magic, and many who do believe that it shouldn't be used for harm. But it's a good way to be on the safe side and to alleviate those concerns. I also mentioned that spells don't have to involve words at all. One form of non-verbal spellcraft that I like to engage in is blessing animals that have died by tracing specific symbols in the air and sending that blessing their way. Whether they're on the side of the road or on someone's plate, blessing animals is a way for me to say, hey, I acknowledge that you were once alive, once a living creature, and so I want to let you know that you are seen and valued and appreciated, even if your life was taken from you. As someone who still occasionally eats seafood, blessing the creatures that I'm eating helps me feel more appreciative of their sacrifice and more connected to the planet. It's really easy for me to feel separated and disconnected from nature, even when I'm outside, so as an earth-based practitioner, the little things I can do to help me feel more connected means a lot to me. But one of the things that I love most about spell work is that it can be suited to your needs. Whether it's anxiety or depression or whatever else, you're always capable of writing a spell to help you work through it. Just like with the other techniques I mentioned, it's not going to be a cure-all, and it's not going to work overnight. But alongside medicine and therapy, they can definitely be powerful tools to help you navigate your mental health. So yeah, those are 5 strategies that I use as a mentally ill neurodivergent witch that might also be helpful for any mentally ill and neurodivergent people, whether you're a witch or not. Let me know if you want a part 2 to this video. As I was writing this script and getting close to the point where I was wrapping everything up, I started thinking, but what about crystals? But what about essential oils? But the script was already on the longer side, so I decided to hold off. But crystals are great. Essential oils literally saved my life one time, and I'd be more than happy to talk about them in another video if that's something that interests you. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, consider supporting us on Patreon, links in the description below. But most importantly, remember that you're wonderful, and that the world is a better place because you're in it. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye!